but every time they do budget estimates, they always revise up the amount of surplus that we're bringing in every month, and that's with us cutting taxes. So we ended last year with the largest budget surplus in Florida history. This year, we're going to do over $2 billion in tax relief, which will be by far the largest in Florida history. We're going to end up doing, so we'll end up having another big surplus, but we're going to end up doing some infrastructure, because we have an infrastructure plan that we fund, and we have the record funding last year and this current fiscal year, which is great, but we've got different spots that need acceleration due to the growth, and so we're going to do a big moonshot there, and we're going to be able to accelerate projects in every corner of the state. We'll end up completing things 10, 12 years ahead of schedule if we're able to do this, and so I think that that's important, and we're going to do that. Florida ranks, I think, number 2 in the country for lowest state per capita tax burden, and we're number 2 in the country for lowest per capita debt burden. Our economy in Florida is over $1 trillion. Our debt's about $20 billion. So compare that debt to GDP ratio to the federal government's debt to GDP ratio, and much different story there. But even though we're second lowest in debt per capita ratio, we're working with the legislature to create a program where we can actually accelerate retiring the debt. And so you're going to have, I think you're going to have a fund that's going to be dedicated to doing that and paying it down even quicker. You know, having some debt actually is not a bad thing, because there's certain things, particularly when the rates were a lot lower, you could do projects that you have to do anyways, most likely, and you could do it, and it makes financial sense. But at the same time, you look at some of these other states with all these unfunded liabilities, massive debt. We don't want to be like in Illinois. We don't want to be like some of these places. And even though we have a big surplus, Texas, a lot of these other red states, you know, California, they've got like a $30 billion deficit hole in their budget that they're having to fill. So we don't want to do that. So in terms of the fundamentals, low tax environment, good budget, big surplus, a lot of economic growth. Florida, we've consistently gotten it right. At the same time, we look over the last few years, and the federal government and some of these other federal entities have consistently gotten it wrong. If you look at what they've done with the Congress, they've put trillions and trillions of dollars of fiscal stimulus into the economy that was way beyond what was appropriate, and that has sparked big inflation throughout our country. You also have the Federal Reserve. They put rates to zero. They started printing all this money. I mean, they've printed trillions and trillions of dollars, so they're printing money. That obviously is going to create inflationary pressures. And so people were saying that this was what was going to happen. They didn't want to listen. And so you had inflation start to percolate. And what they said was, well, it's transitory. Don't worry about it. And so inflation started getting worse and worse. They got behind the ball. So then what does the Fed do, Jerome Powell? They start hiking rates very rapidly, and that's causing dislocations in the banking sector. It's causing individuals to suffer just because they took their eye off the ball and didn't know what they were doing. And, you know, I think the Fed has done a horrible job, you know, over these last few years, and they really are creating potential significant turmoil in the economy going forward. I mean, think about what they did. For all of 2022, they were hiking rates, taking money out of the economy because there was too much money that had been printed. And so they're doing that, and that obviously causes problems because they didn't do it, they didn't handle it appropriately. But then what have they done in like the last month? They're bailing out banks like Silicon Valley Bank. And so they took money out of the economy, and they've already printed more money just in the last week or in the last couple weeks. So all that they did for last year and all the problems that caused, they've already erased half of the money that they took out by printing more money. And I can tell you, the Silicon Valley Bank, these were people that were very connected to a lot of the policymakers in Washington. I can tell you, if this was some bank in the Midwest that serviced farmers, they would never have bailed it out. That's just not what would have happened. And so they're creating, I think, a lot of perverse incentives. And here's the thing. You can't just do policies like we've seen over the past few years and think that somehow nobody's going to have to pay the piper. Somebody's going to have to pay the piper. You can't just print money out of thin air like they did and expect that it's all going to be hunky-dory. And so they're finding that out now. There's been a lot of fiscal and monetary mismanagement. But the reality is that the people who, in these banks that are getting the bailouts, they're basically being protected from some of the policy choices they made, some of the policy choices the Fed are making. The average American, though, is not getting any type of protection on that. I mean, you're now looking at, if you want to purchase a home and look at the interest rates compared to what they were 2 or 3 years ago, you're talking about way, way more expensive to be able to do that. That's a big, big problem. So one of the things that we wanted to work on in Florida, and really Senator Pasadomo was the leader on this, is to say, okay, what can we do to be able to make an impact on people who are suffering under this Bidenflation? And some of the things we did on the tax we think are very good. I mean, we did a 50% reduction in tolls for our commuters for 2023. We're going to do things like eliminate sales tax on all baby items, so diapers, wipes, cribs, clothes, all that to help families. And we're doing other things to make things a little bit more easy for people when you're having to deal with this. But one of the things that's been really tough for folks is the housing costs, because you're in a situation where inflation is driving everything up, period. But then when they're building new things, and we saw this in our budget in Florida, we would have projects in the budget in 2021 thinking that we funded something. And then the next year I come back and they're asking to put more money in for the same project. Wait a minute, we funded that. No, the costs have gone up 50, 60% in some cases, and so you're having to put more money in. So we've had to do that, and I think it's a lesson because Biden, they've spent so much money, and they act like somehow we're benefiting. Oh, we have money for infrastructure, all this other stuff, but just keep in mind, most of the money that is being sloshed around is getting canceled out by the rising costs anyways. So if a project would have cost $100 million 3 years ago, and you give me $100 million, but it's now gone up significantly, how much are you really getting ahead at that point? And so we're seeing that over and over again, and that's part of the issue. And then now, of course, with the housing, with the interest rates, that has a huge problem for affordability as well. So being able to have folks who are teachers, police officers, firefighters, all these important things, you can't do it if they have to drive an hour and a half just to get to work every day. I mean, we want people to be able to live in the community where they're working. And so last year, we did a program called the Hometown Heroes program. And what it did was it provided down payment assistance for folks who are military veterans, first responders, nurses, teachers, and we've had a lot of them have been able to utilize that. I think that we haven't exhausted all the money that was in the budget last year so far this fiscal year, but we've done it at a very, very impressive clip, and so that's really, really been meaningful. That's just one small part of what needs to be done to be able to have more access for folks. And so today we're going to be signing Senate Bill 102 titled the Live Local Act, to be able to help Floridians live in the communities where they work. So this bill includes $711 million for projects through the Florida Housing Finance Corporation, and this is the largest ever support for housing in state history. In fact, this almost doubles what the legislature did last year, which was already at a 15-year high. So some of the things that the bill does is there'll be $100 million for a second year of Hometown Heroes program for the down payment and closing cost assistance to hometown heroes wanting to purchase their first home. And as I mentioned, Of the $100 million last year, the vast majority has been obligated. I think it's about $72 million. And I think that this has been something that's been very popular with military veterans, in particular, also very popular with police officers. The bill also dedicates $259 million for the State Apartment Incentive Loan, the SAIL program, to provide financial assistance to be able to develop new housing. And $150 million of these funds are recurring for certain specified uses, such as the redevelopment of underused property and projects near military installations. You know, when you're in the military, you go in, you get something called a BAH, Basic Allowance for Housing, and it's tax-free, so that's nice. You know, the problem is that those BAH rates are set sometimes years in advance. They oftentimes are not keeping up with inflation. And so I think this will be helpful to provide more options for active duty service members. $252 million for the SHIP program, and this works with local governments to be able to create partnerships to produce more housing units in the state of Florida. And then finally, $100 million for Florida Housing and Finance Corp to implement a loan program to alleviate inflation-related cost increases for previously approved projects. And this is a huge, huge issue. Projects that were agreed to a couple years ago, the cost has just gone up dramatically, and sometimes you're in a situation where you got to hold these people accountable because the overruns are through mismanagement. In this situation, the reality is it's just much more expensive to get a lot of the materials than it was just a couple years ago, and so this program recognizes that and tries to help doing that. The bill also creates a $5,000 refund for sales tax on building materials for these workforce housing units when they're done through Florida Housing and Finance Corporation. And these will be things that people can use right now, which is really, really good. We also do more for the down payment assistance program for Hometown Heroes and even increase that. Also broaden FHFFC's ability to invest in housing for those in or aging out of foster care, expands eligibility for the Governor's Job Growth Grant Fund to authorize public infrastructure projects that support housing development. As you know, you can have a parcel, you can build some apartments, but you need a road there or something like that, so we can be able to help that. So at the end of the day, you know, we're proud of what we've been able to accomplish in Florida. We think the quality of life here, here's all I know. When people come up to me and they say they moved from Illinois or from Michigan or New York or wherever, I always ask them, are you glad you did it? And I haven't met anyone yet who's not been glad that they did it. And so I think that's... So I think that's a testament that it's a great quality of life here, particularly this time of year in Southwest Florida. You look around, I mean, I kind of feel like we have half of Wisconsin and Michigan here already. So it's just the nature of how it is. So we're proud of that. We're proud of the strength of our communities. I mean, we saw the response to Hurricane Ian. We saw what our first responders were doing. We saw everyone pull together. And these are folks that are instrumental for the health of our communities. And so we want to be able to have folks who are able to afford to live in those communities. And you know, the good thing about being a well-run state and being a desired location is that, you know, people vote with their feet, and you kind of get a vindication on those policies just by watching people's behavior. But, you know, as demand is high to move to a place like Florida, it sometimes makes it more challenging for folks to be able to afford. So this, I think, is the biggest effort that's ever been done in the history of Florida to be able to do. And Kathleen will probably talk about a little bit. You know, some of it is trying to get creative about how you're doing things. You know, for example, like you have different commercial areas. There's nothing saying that you shouldn't be able to maybe have some apartments like on top of some of these businesses. They do that in different parts, and it's something that is an option to be able to do. So trying to utilize some of the commercial space and be able to have maybe a valve to have some housing supply. You know, there's some creative things in the legislation which I think will make a big difference. So we're proud of the free state of Florida. We're thankful that so many people have set their sights on on being here and working here and raising families here, retiring here, runs the gamut. And we're proud of that. We got to make sure that our infrastructure and our housing supply are able to sustain this growth. And here's the thing, I'm not even asking anybody to move. You know, you'll have some governors will beg people to move to their states. I don't do that. I'm just sitting here, we're just living the dream, doing what we do, but so I'm not even asking, but I also just have to recognize that it's a free country. Well, it's a free state here. I don't know about the country so much anymore. We've got some work there. But people are able to vote with their feet, and they're able to do that, and that is something that we need. We've always understood that and gotten ahead. I think it's been very rapid. So that's why we're taking steps, and we look forward to signing this bill. We look forward to some of the infrastructure moonshots that we're going to be able to do. But we have a responsibility to understand that it's a big state, and that it's a great state, but we've got to be mindful of all the challenges. And so I want to thank the legislature. I want to thank Senator Pasadomo. This was her top priority to be able to do, and so now she can work on getting all our stuff across the finish line in the Senate, which she's done a great job of doing so far. So why don't we welcome Senator Pasadomo up to be able to say a few things.
I just said to him, "You're on a roll, aren't you?" Well, welcome to Southwest Florida. I don't have to welcome the governor because I think he spends more time here than he does in Tallahassee. Has been right. I think if he could, he would single-handedly build the Sanibel Bridge by himself. And I want to thank my colleague and partner in the House, Speaker Renner, who has been a joy to work with. And we've got some amazing things that we're doing this session. And our two bill sponsors, Representatives Demi Busada Cabrera and Alexis Claudiute, who worked so hard to get this bill across the finish line, although I was like behind there, do this, tell them what to do all the time. When I moved to Naples 43 years ago, the community was talking about the lack of housing for our workers. It was a problem then, and it's a problem today in not just Southwest Florida, but the entire state of Florida. I've had so many conversations with the governor and the speaker about this bill that when they see me coming, they run. So once it's signed today, we can move on to other things. As the governor said, the free state of Florida has attracted so many new people to move here, and that has just exacerbated the problem. And we don't have one solution to the problem, but the Live Local Act is an amazing, multifaceted, 106-page bill of ideas and suggestions on how we can provide affordable, safe housing for our workers. We have a new program called the Missing Middle. For the first time, we're offering owners of substantially renovated or recently constructed units the chance to qualify for a tax exemption when they turn market rate units into affordable rentals for our low and moderate income Floridians. We're fortunate that right next door is a wonderful project underway that will do just that. We have so many things in this bill. There's something for everybody. So that we believe that from day one, there will be a big impact on the lack of housing for our citizens. We want our residents to live close to where they work. Imagine being able to, if you work at a hospital, walking to work. If you work at a bank, walking to work. Those people who have to drive an hour to an hour and a half to work, it's a tragedy. It's so hard on their families. We want everybody to live local, and I just am so thrilled that the governor and the speaker are in sync on this amazing product. Thank you. You guys have a great day. I wish I could stay, but I got to go back.
And I don't know if you said this, but it passed 40-0 in the Senate, right? Okay. All right, Speaker Paul Renner.
Well, it's great to be with you today, and I really won the lottery to have Kathleen Pasadomo as my counterpart in the Senate, and this is her baby. She's worked so hard on this housing bill, and we would go around the state in our respective travels and say, what are the top 3 things we need to work on, and invariably it was workforce housing. We got to have the ability to have our people not have to drive an hour, hour and a half away. And she spent a large part of the summer building out this really transformative change, the best we've done in the state of Florida on housing. And, in Florida, we don't wait around to fix problems. We fix them immediately. And we've got a governor that does that, and you've got a Senate president who is all about fixing problems of real people and Floridians day in and day out. And so it's only the beginning. We're not even halfway done with session yet. So you're going to see more great things from the Florida legislature this year. But I just want to say how great it is and say another thank you to President Pasadomo for all your hard work on this. It's really going to change people's lives for the better. And that's what we always should be about, right? Politicians get carried away sometimes with ego and everything else. But this legislature, this governor, we're about solving real problems. And so we've done that here today. And I also want to commend Representative Basada Cabrera in the House for carrying this bill, as well as Senator Kala Tayud in the Senate for great work and your efforts in bringing this bill to fruition. So thank you guys very, very much, and thank you to Senator Pasadomo again for your great work.
All right, Michael DiNapoli, Executive Director, Florida Housing Finance.
Thank you, Governor. It's wonderful to be here. I just want to say quickly thank you to Governor DeSantis, Senate President Pasadomo, and of course, House Speaker Paul Renner. This is an amazing bill. As we all know, during Governor DeSantis' administration, the state of Florida has become an even greater magnet for people all over the world seeking to live in a place that ensures freedom and opportunity. Once again, Governor DeSantis and the Florida legislature have chosen to lead this passage and enactment of SB 102, the Live Local Act. The legislature aims to provide affordable housing, affordable and attainable housing for all Floridians, and it is an honor, truly an honor, to lead the Florida Housing Finance Corporation alongside the governor and with our partners in the legislature during this historic moment. As we were coming down, I was speaking with Speaker Renner, and he had asked me the immediacy of some of the work that's going to be done. And of course, I just want to highlight the hometown heroes. I know we're going to hear from Frank Jones from the Collier County Sheriff's Office about him receiving a Hometown Heroes loan, down payment assistance. It's just amazing. We've got 262 participating banks. We've got 1,300 active loan officers within those banks working on the Hometown Heroes program. And there's 3,300 realtors, and I hear there's realtors here, so thank you so much. It starts with you, and it starts with advising your clients on this amazing down payment assistance with the Hometown Heroes. So thank you, Governor. It's wonderful to be here. Thank you so much.
Okay, Detective Frank Jones, Collier County Sheriff's Office.
Thank you, Governor. I'm glad to be here. My sheriff here from Collier County. I'm the one that came from Illinois. So, yeah, they brought me down from Illinois. I've been doing this job almost 36 years now, and I don't regret it all. Still. Yeah. But I'm glad I received this Hometown Hero loan to buy a new home. And this loan, the program is frontline workers, which I take my hat off for you guys. It's a lot. Coming from Illinois, where they don't appreciate most places don't appreciate the police or law enforcement, firefighters. Here, you guys love them. And I go to places and I see people, and people say thank you, and I'm looking around, thank you for what I do, and they just say thank you for your service. And that honestly, they bring water to my eye. And when I see they teach the little kids, the small ones, they saying the same thing. That's appreciated. And I appreciate you, Governor. And because of this program, I was able to purchase my home in the community that I serve, which is huge. Because now you see people all the time, not in their bad moments, you see them in their good moments too. So that's a lot. So That's all I want to say. And I want to thank you guys, and thank you, Governor.
Okay, Brigadier General Chip Deal.
Thank you, Governor. And as always, I'm honored to fly your wing today and for always. Sir, you and I know, along with 1.5 million veterans that are here in Florida, along with thousands of active duty, I will add the National Guard and the Reserves and our Coast Guard. We know the pride we revere in serving our nation. And in fact, sir, my son comes back tomorrow. He's serving in the Air Force right now, and he comes back to Florida tomorrow. You know, in the military, we live the moves. We cherish the camaraderie. We endure the sacrifice. But I will also tell you here, we never look back. It is truly an honor for us. Now, as the governor has already mentioned, people are moving here from all over the country. Sir, the success that you mentioned on our economic front, the quality of life, our location. But here on behalf of our military, I would also like to add that it's the freedom that we enjoy in Florida due to you, Governor, our champion, that I just wanted to thank you. You know, in our military, we do move a lot. In my 30-year career, I moved 17 times. But we serve. And we value, I'm here to tell you what we're talking about today, we value our homes. You know, education, health care, child care, which again, Governor, Madam President, Speaker, this state supports our military. And when you're talking about homes today, education, health care, child care is on the forefront of the legislatures and even the First Lady. But it's our home that I would just like to tell you is the capstone of a military family. While we deploy, it's back home, and knowing that comfort is what's important to us. The challenges today, though, are not only for us to afford a home, a place to call home, but it's also enjoying the right homes, which this bill helps do. We don't just need a home. We need 3 bedrooms. We need 4 bedrooms. I will also add to you, we need the right locations. In many of our installations, right, you go up, whether it's the Panhandle or you come to Tampa, there are people living 45 minutes to an hour away because that's the only place they can find that nest egg called a home. And that's stressful. I'm here to tell you it's stressful. But today, again, Florida shines brightly, and here's where I want to bring it to a conclusion. We're doing something about it. We're taking action. And that's where I want to, again, salute the governor, the legislature for doing this. Here's some of the highlights that I bring. You've already heard about them. The SAIL program, which stands for State Apartment Incentive Loans, providing quality housing developers the direct support they need for construction and more multi-family homes closer to our military installations. That's big for us. The Hometown Heroes program that you've heard, supporting the down payment and closing assistance. The governor mentioned BAH. BAH does not go up like the normal inflation. It is steady. It's usually a 10-year increment. It's steady. So again, the Hometown Heroes, those down payments, closing assistance, active duty veterans, again, I'm talking 1.5 million veterans, so that they can help in their moves to Florida. Foremost, my last point, these actions today, this legislation goes into effect when he signs that bill. That money he mentioned is going to be in the bank for us, all of us, in a couple weeks. Again, this is the action we're getting from the leadership. Governor, the legislation, your leadership, and now the aggressiveness of the legislature, as I mentioned, is a major leap forward in the arena called housing. As you have mentioned, it is a moonshot, for which we salute you, and from our hearts, all the military, I'd just like to say thank you. And for all of us, this is why Florida is the most pro-military state in the nation, and under this governor's leadership, it always will be. Thank you.
Well, thank you. You know, when you're, and I was a Florida resident, so it wasn't as big a deal, but when you get assigned on active duty to a Florida base, and as the general said, you get sent around the country. Usually every 18 to 36 months, you change your station. And the people that end up in one of our bases here, whether it's the Panhandle, Tampa, whatnot, they tend to keep that Florida residency. Even if they get sent to Washington State or Norfolk or wherever, and so they keep the Florida residency, and there's benefits for doing that, of course, and then many of them end up retiring in Florida. And so you look at something like Hometown Heroes, they're able to purchase a house potentially, they can do that as their homestead, and then even if they get sent in different directions throughout the country, they always have that Florida residency that they go back. Most of them vote in Florida and continue to do that. So it's a big deal, and I think it's something that is not lost on military members who, if you go to these other states, if they have been in Florida before, chances are a decent number of them are still Florida residents, and we're proud of that. Okay, Ryan Carter, come on up.
All right. I just want to thank you, Governor, for having me, and I have some great members of my team and my beautiful wife, Amy, here. So on March 29th, it's a very special day for myself and for Floridians. First, I want to say my company 13 years ago started on this day here in Southwest Florida. We're Scotland, we're a trucking, logistics, and freight brokerage company. We chose here for all the same reasons I think many of us are here. It's a wonderful place to live, awesome business climate, and I wouldn't change anything about that. So 13 years ago, I was 25 years old. I moved here like thousands of people are every single week from another state. Came down here in a U-Haul. I had my dog, and that was it. Didn't know much about living in Florida, but found it to be nice. I lived in Cape Coral. I found a place that was affordable, even though it was about a 25-minute commute from where I needed to be every day. We had a toll every day, which will be cut in half, so that's great. But I worked hard. I worked very hard, saved up money. I was able to buy a home in Fort Myers within probably 10 minutes of home. So that's a big deal. And so it's the same problem and same goal I think a lot of our employees face, where they want to, cut down that commute to work. I'm a proud parent of 3 boys. Time is more valuable than anything. I think it's our most valuable resource, and commuting is not a good use of that time. And so, with that, over the years we've hired hundreds of people. We have about 450 employees right now. Some of them commute 45 minutes up to an hour, and we hire a lot of folks that are right out of college, first-time career, and you don't have the luxury of living anywhere you want, and so the last 5 years that's become a major challenge, and so I'll get to that. And so this year we're looking to hire 200 people to service about $800 million in sales that we've been able to do this year here in Southwest Florida. And so the second reason today is special is because of this bill. The last 5 years have been very challenging on the hiring front. The number one, without a doubt, issue with hiring, in whether it's people from out of state, like in Illinois, New York, which we've hired a lot of these folks, is finding an affordable place to live. Without a doubt, it is the hardest thing, and it is usually the last deterrent from somebody even coming to work for us is, hey, I can't find a place to live. $2,500 a month for an apartment is not going to work for me. So With that being said, I think this day is very special. Senator Pasadomo, back in October, I don't know if you remember, you spoke to a Vistage group I'm in, and your passion for affordable housing was very evident then, and it's incredible to see how quickly we're taking action on that. So, I can't imagine doing business anywhere else. The last 5 years have been challenging. The last 2 or 3 years have been very challenging on the workplace or the workforce housing, and this bill I think is going to have an immediate impact on that. And the folks at Scotland are very thankful for this, and I'm sure many of us new and existing Floridians are as well. So thank you, Governor. Thank you, Speaker Renner. Thank you, President Pasadomo. I look forward to this, and I look forward to working with the state. So thank you.
Okay, thanks. All right, and last but certainly not least, we have Mike McGraw, President of the Florida Realtors.
At more than 238,000 members strong, Florida Realtors serves as the voice of real estate and for private property rights in Florida. And we believe in home ownership. We are excited to be here today to help celebrate this historic moment for housing, a moment that would not be possible without the leadership of Governor DeSantis and his tireless efforts to make Florida the success that it is. The Live Local Act does so many amazing things. It expands eligibility requirements and invests more than an additional $100 million into Hometown Heroes. The housing program that as of January 30th has already helped 3,582 hardworking Floridians purchase their first home. It incentivizes builders and owners in a variety of ways to increase housing inventory throughout the entire state. And it invests more than $500 million into proven ship and sale programs that put Floridians in homes. Thank you, President Pasadomo, for the long hours you spent gathering feedback and creating this historic bill. Thank you. And thank you, Speaker Renner, for your support of this bill throughout the entire legislative process. And thank you, Governor DeSantis, for being a champion for housing, a champion for freedom, and since your very first day in office, a champion for the state of Florida. Thank you.
Thank you. We gonna get everybody up and do it? Okay. John Hancock is incoming on this. All right. What are you guys doing? Good to see you. Yeah, of course. All right. You want one of these pens for this?
Yes, I do.
All right. Who else we got coming up? All right. We got police, fire. Good. All right. So today is the 29th. We've done a lot. It's not even April yet on that. It's good. Gotta keep. All right. There we go. There you go. Anybody else? All right, there we go. We got it. Okay, good stuff. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. We're going this way.
Well,